Hello, everybody. Welcome to my channel. My name is Margaret Pinard. I have finally added the headline on my own channel. You are here on my channel, which is a booktube/authortube channel, but today is a Wednesday wrap-up, so we will be booktubing it up today. And what I've got for you is the final wrap-up of the Irish Readathon reads, some in-between transition reads from previous months, and plans for April with some great recommendations to hit 2 readathons at once. So first of all, if you're new here, welcome. I am a historical fiction and fantasy writer and an eclectic reader. So not only books you've never heard of from the backlist, but also some really great historical fiction, some really great historical romance, and nonfiction. Those are sort of where I like to shine, if you will. So hopefully that catches your attention if you like those genres. Here's the rhyme to remember from my videos that go live on Sundays and Wednesdays at 11 a.m., except when triple tag Tuesdays butt in, or Friday productivity sprints cause me to grin. And we will have one of those this Friday since it is First Friday. I do Final Friday, First Friday. That is what we're in between. So if you want to get some work done with people on the interwebs, that's what I'm here for. But today, and April activities. So I am doing a cool thing for April. Many of my friends here are doing Camp NaNoWriMo April. That is a thing. Hi, Anita. Hi, RC. Hey, King. I see you working. Camp NaNoWriMo. I'm doing something a bit different. I'm doing it my way, like Frank says. And that means I'm doing a combination because I can never do one thing. I'm doing a short story scene plus a short. So SD Houston has been telling me that's the way to grow your channel. It's really helped her channel. And I'm like, I don't know, these shorts, editing on the phone, blah, blah, blah. But I'm finally doing it. When I first started BookTube, I forced myself to learn how to video edit by doing one new trick a day for the month of August in 2020. And so April 2023, we're trying the same tactic, but for shorts editing. So like the vertical format TikTok-y videos. And that's where they're coming from, of course, on my phone. So I'm just doing like a little mini vlog about me writing every morning. I do my morning pages, and then I do my little short story scene. They're all on separate prompts. And then I throw it up on TikTok and the YouTube shorts and see if people like it. So hopefully that pleases. And I've just popped the playlist into the chat in case you're curious. They're all under a minute. So like it's not a big chunk out of your life like these wrap-ups are. Okay, so we're going to start with April plans. April Readathon Recs. So the two that stand out to me in terms of catching my attention are Springathon, which is like nature stuff, and People April, which is a new one this year. So Springathon is run by Doris and Heidi and Natalie this year, and it's great, like learning about nature, learning about science, learning about animals, ecology, all these things fall under that purview. And People April is run by Elizabeth and Roz. And like I said, first year, it's biography and memoir. And so what I thought I would do, since I already have this list made up on bookshop.org to support independent bookstores, is go through the recommendations that I have on my 5-star Nature Memoir list. So let me just pop these in case you're curious and you're watching this back. The links to their videos. Here's the one explaining or announcing People April and explaining what that is about from Elizabeth. And then this is the one on Heidi's channel from My Reading Life and explaining what Springathon is about and her recommendations. So I'm going to be putting my recommendations out there because I think they overlap, but not too much. And so if you like this channel, you may like my recommendations. 5-star Nature Memoirs. I've got 11, so I'll just touch on them briefly. First of all, we've got 2 entries, so this will go first. 2 entries from Robin Wall Kimmerer. We've got Braiding Sweetgrass and we've got Gathering Moss. I read Gathering Moss first. It's shorter. It's published first. It's about moss. How can you not love it? And I read Braiding Sweetgrass at the end of last year, and it was everything I thought it would be. Robin Wall Kimmerer is an Indigenous PhD researcher who tries to blend those two worlds of cultural ways of knowing and scientific evidence-based research in a way that is narrative storytelling, and it's just beautiful. So I love reading about even things that I'd never thought of. So even if it's not moss, I still love reading her writing and recommend her all day, every day. The next one I have, so 11, 10, 9, I'm just going to go down, even though it's not priority order, is The Old Ways, A Journey on Foot by Robert Macfarlane. And he's written another book more recently, but this one is really more close to my heart. He basically follows up Rebecca Solnit's Wanderlust, which is like paths that have been made by humans over hundreds and thousands of years, and what they mean and how they last and how they're in our cultural imagination. And he does stuff in the Highlands, so it's just like right up my alley. So Robert Macfarlane, really liked The Old Ways. Next, we've got Mary Reynolds. See, this is Brit heavy. I think there's 5 Brits and Irish and 6 American books. So it's like half and half for my English audience. Mary Reynolds is the sort of wunderkind of garden, landscaping, ecology stuff in the UK. And I really loved her book, The Garden Awakening, Designs to Nurture Our Land and Ourselves. So this is a beautiful hardcover book that talks about her journey from designing gardens and being in the Chelsea garden show, flower show, to sort of like unlearning even more and being an iconoclast of the gardening world. So very cool. Next, another Brit is Alistair Moffat, The Hidden Ways, Scotland's Forgotten Roads. So this is very like The Old Ways, The Hidden Ways. The title is very similar. But this is different places. So basically, forgotten roads, how they got there, why they got there, places in history. I just lapped it up. So that is on my list. 5-star Nature Memoirs, in case you're just tuning in. Next, I finally have an American one, Leanda Lynn Haupt, Rooted: Life at the Crossroads of Science, Nature, and Spirit. And just like Robin Wall Kimmerer was trying to weave together, see that braiding sweetgrass pun, weave together Indigenous ways of knowing with science-backed research, Rooted is trying to question and unearth, that's another pun if you're counting, the ways that our intuition and spirit world might inhabit science, nature, and how these disciplines overlap. I read this a while ago, so it's not as like firmly exampled in my mind, but definitely put it on this list. So there we go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Number 5, we've got To Speak for the Trees. And this is an Irish woman, Diana Beresford Kroger, another scientist, in case anyone is wondering where these people fall. To Speak for the Trees, My Life's Journey from Ancient Celtic Wisdom to a Healing Vision of the Forest. And so if you like the Lorax, this is definitely your science adult version. She has a very interesting structure to this book. She talks about her childhood. It's biography memoir, as I said, for People April. She talks about the troubles, the what do they call them? Magdalene laundries, and how she was really an outsider and in between two worlds. And here's some Springathon. Bean, my cat, is making that noise the cats make when they see birds. So if you can hear that, that's what that is. And then she goes into her life's work, which has been traveling and researching trees and species and the history of trees and how to reforest, and ends with a alphabet of the ancient Irish language that used basically like what looked like runes, but they stood for trees. And so she uses the tree language to talk about her relationship with trees over her life, and I just thought it was really beautiful. So Diana Beresford Kroger, great book. I listened to this as well. So anyone who is into audiobooks, I loved the audiobook when she read this. And of course, as Gemma was just saying, I'm a proponent of Libro.fm for audiobooks. So I just had to put that in there again. Let's see, we have 4 down to 4. Orchard. People have heard me talk about Orchard, A Year in England's Eden. This is by Benedict MacDonald and Nicholas Gates, 2 more Brits. They take a small slice of land in southern England and observe how it's been abandoned or derelict over like the past 100 years and how that has enabled its own original personality to come forth. Basically, they call it England's Eden because of this condition. And there's a scientist, that's Ben MacDonald, and there's a photographer, Nicholas Gates, and they combine forces to observe, document, piece together how the ecology is working together. And it's just beautiful things, again, that I didn't know that I would like becoming mind-blowing. So really well done for non-science people. 3. Is this 3? Yes. You've heard me talk about this one. Truth, Courage, and Solutions for the Climate Crisis. This is a bunch of different formats of short pieces. So essays, poems, biography stuff, research reports, narrative license writing. I don't know how to call it. But Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson, a hero, and Catherine K. Wilkinson. Excellent. I've read from this before, and it's just so hopeful and really gives you examples of things where people are being proactive, which is amazing, instead of being hopeless and fatalistic about the climate crisis, which you may do if you follow the news. So that was wonderful. 2, Disposable City, Miami's Future on the Shores of Climate Catastrophe, which is by Mario Alejandro Ariza. And he is a journalist in Florida and talks about both his roots in the area as well as social science stuff. So economics and migration and like drainage and racism and policies, just really layered. I've had several courses in college and graduate school where the professor chose to order the course like this, where they sort of like give you overlays, like a map layer of a certain issue so that you can see all different sides of it. And I think that's really effective. And I think Ariza does this for Miami. So again, kind of like Eden, you're just looking at one piece, but like seeing it from all different angles through all different overlays and getting a really thorough view of the things we're facing up ahead, right? And then the last one I have is Fox and I, An Uncommon Friendship, which is by Catherine Raven, recommended to be by Mary Weber O'Malley from A Mighty Blaze. This is a woman who is a scientist and neurodivergent person who does not like to live in cities or around people. So the way that she came to this friendship was very unique, and she has a very unique way of describing this. It's not a rapprochement. I guess it's an approachement of a certain fox in her neighborhood in Montana and her as an adult trying to struggle with where she is in life and what she perceives the animal's personalities to be or limitations to be. And she puts a lot of other pieces of her life in there as well to get vulnerable. So taking 10 minutes to go through those 11 recommendations for Springathon and People April. Those are my 5-star nature memoirs. And like I said, I've got the link to my bookshop.org list if you want to check them out in the chat. Whew. Okay. We are going. We are going. That was making good time. All right. So next I have my wrap up for the Irish Readathon. Okay. We're going to take a little break though before I start this, because I'm going pretty fast today. All right. So Irish Readathon, I've given several wrap-ups for March each Wednesday, and I've gone over, I think, 2 of the books, right? So let me check. I've got Irish Readathon on Storygraph open. Edna O'Brien, Mother Ireland, fantastic. And An Old Woman's Reflections by Peg Sayers, also good. So what else have we here? So we've got 5 prompts, and I did 4 of them, which is pretty good for like taking an easy, casual approach to the Irish Readathon. I read 4 books, and I made some count for more than one. So the ones that you have not heard about were the ones that I read in 1 week for the last week of March. And let's just skip to those, shall we? So as you may remember, I was trying to clear out my Irish Reads section to make room for new blood, because it's been several years where I go through, oh, I should read something from this section, but nothing inspires me. And so I don't end up reading anything Irish, maybe one, right? But this year, I gave 2 away because I considered that if I haven't read them in 3 years of Bookshop, I'm not going to read them. And gave myself an ultimatum, right? So for the last week, I read 2 books that, this one definitely qualifies. Irish Hunger, written by several Irish and Irish American writers, and there's lots of different pieces in there, edited by Tom Hayden, which, side note, Tom Hayden was someone in the Chicago 7 and famous as a civil rights activist, which I didn't know, and married Jane Fonda and divorced Jane Fonda. So interesting side note. And the other one doesn't really count, but I'm lumping it in here because it's about Ireland. It's Heinrich Böll's Irish Journal, written in the 50s, and then he put an afterword about 15 years later, after the tone of his visits locations changed. So, oh my gosh. Okay, I'm going to read some excerpts from this one. This was such a fascinating read. This is one of those, why did I leave it on my shelf for so long? This is so good. And it was just there, and I didn't know because it's such a boring cover. Come on, 1997, like, get it together. So I'll read some excerpts here, and you may hear things that remind you of my writing. So let's see if I can attribute what I'm reading this from. This is the introduction by Tom Hayden, An Irish Hunger for Meaning. Second, the deliberate avoidance of past traumas is unhealthy for individuals or cultures. The repressed past does not simply let go of us on command. The hidden scar, the phrase again is Boland's, even Boland, even, is transmitted invisibly and unconsciously across generations. I don't know. Does that sound like it might have some bearing on the present case? Maybe. So yeah, don't repress the past and don't keep it out of the schools, you stupid bastards. Here's another one. What happened? Did I turn down a page and... Okay, that is not one that I marked for today, apparently. Ooh, and here's one that I actually put in my Chicago novel that has a bearing on that. So, The Sons of This Famine, let me attribute it. Sorry, I'm being lazy. Leaves of Pain by Jimmy Breslin. So this was written in 1977. This is the link between different periods of history. The Sons of This Famine burned an orphanage in New York City. It was the Colored Orphan Asylum, of course. When the maimed poor lash out anywhere, they seek not the blood of dukes and earls, but rather of victims such as they. We were just talking about this on my interview with Books by Adrian yesterday about Dulcie's Legacy, my second book. And yes, I pointed out that I like to point out historical conflicts in my fiction that highlight oppressed groups being turned against each other rather than actually overthrowing the oppressor, and that it's still going on. So, hi, Brian. Hello. Richard says, how many channels is this going out on? It's going out on 3. It's going out on my YouTube channel, my LinkedIn channel, and my Twitter feed. So, in an Irish accent. You know, it's funny. I listened to a few videos by the Rubber Bandits, and their Limerick accent is, it is something else. If you haven't looked them up, look them up. All right, so here's another one. And for attribution, this is from In Search of the Banished Children, A Famine Journey by Peter Quinn. I hadn't heard of a lot of these people, so I don't have much context for where the writers are famous or, what their specialty is. But this jumped out at me. Somewhere in the mass of statistics compiled on the famine, bowls of soup distributed, evictions, deaths from fever, departures, etc., are my ancestors. Over the years, as I poked at the fringes of those lives, as I tried to piece together some coherent record of the long day's journey of my family from famine Ireland to the Bronx of my childhood, I came to realize that in their particularity, in their individuality, these people were beyond my knowing. They had been swallowed by the anti-romance of history, immigrant ships, cholera sheds, tenement houses. They had dissolved into genetic influence, pigment of skin, size of feet, shape of nose, into unconscious inheritance, presumptions, fears, ambitions, into thin air, the exhalation of the past that shapes the present, like the glass blower's breath in the bubble of hot melted sand. So I just really liked that writing. I thought that was really beautiful. And again, content also good. And then the final excerpt from Irish Hunger, this collection of essays, is from Famine Roads by Avon Boland. So she is, I think, a poet and fiction writer, but mostly poet. Again, I don't know the context of most of these writers, but I definitely have heard of her name. And if you liked, oh shoot, now I'm gonna Doreen Negrifa, whatever her book was a couple of years ago that came out. Oh, hello. My friends from all over. A bit lagged. No worries. If you like Doreen Negrifa's book about like searching for roots in Ireland and this woman who was in a poem but not really paid enough attention to, that she like digs up her possible life and really gets into it because of her own challenges. The sense of apologizing for what you're writing or examining that impulse is definitely in this essay, which is interesting. This piece is about an event which happened long ago and in another country. It is not an exact account. I will not be writing about crop disease or the policies of a government, but about something smaller and more personal. I will be trying to describe here how the meaning of the famine influenced and directed me in the way I thought about my country, my nationality, my poetry. Even within this fenced-off and fragmented part of this subject, I have to add a caution. I am a poet, not an historian, not a sociologist. The past does not seem an exact science to me, but a collage put together by two fiction makers, the need to remember and the need to forget. I'm writing about an event I never witnessed, never studied, never discussed with friends, never heard about from family, which nevertheless became imaginatively important to me. That's so perfect. I mean, that so perfectly expresses, like, when people ask me, why do you write about old Scottish history? If you didn't even know, there's a moth. Hold on. Come here. Got it. I'm so good at this now. I have a closed moth infestation, so we get a few of those every day. When people ask me, why did you start writing about Scottish history when you didn't even know you had Scottish roots? Is before, like, I asked my dad about one of his grandparents' names and we figured it was Scottish extraction. And that is the answer. Like, for some reason, wasn't taught in my schools. Like, it's not popular history, but like what did she say? She said it's imaginatively important to me. And so that is that is now going to be my answer. I'm just going to quote her every time I'm asked that in an interview. No mercy, Richard. So that was a fantastic book. I'm sure it's going to be hard to find. It's kind of academic. It's from 1996 or 7, and it's a, essay collection. But if you can find it, definitely do. The other Irish read, as I was saying, is by a German writer, Heinrich Böll, who I know from his environmental foundation, his legacy. And this is more like travel writing, funny, anecdotal. There were a few things that jumped out at me. I mean, there's a lot that I didn't understand. The few things that jumped out, he has an interesting way of characterizing like layers of need. And when he's on the ferry going over to Ireland, he notices that the buttons disappear from tailored garments and he sees safety pins and folds of fabric. And then when he gets to the poorer areas around like somewhere in the middle of Ireland where he's staying, the safety pin disappears in the 1950s and he sees string that's holding up pants that are too big or that are hand-me-downs. And so you sort of see this layered writing, and he's great. So I was talking to Heinrich earlier about, is he any good? Should I read his other stuff? And apparently, yes, he's a very well-known post-war German writer. The other thing that stood out is that he actually puts an essay in here about the Irish talking to him about Hitler and saying, you know, he didn't have everything wrong. He just went too far. And the German tourist and his family there has to go into, no, like, this is what happened. And he like lays down the statistics and says, this is not okay. This is what happened. Like the graphic detail, like the people murdered and the gassing and all this stuff. And by the time he like assaults his Irish listener with all these terrible things that he did, they're like, oh, I guess I can't, I don't want to hear this anymore. I guess you're right. I'll have to like sleep on it, whatever. It's kind of an odd chapter, but apparently this happened to him like every time he went out to a pub and was sitting and talking to people of a night. When they heard he was German, they'd work themselves into the conversation and finally at the end get up their courage to say like, Hitler didn't have everything wrong. And you're like, wait, what? From 60 years later, you're like, what the hell? Like, Irish people, interesting. Irish racism. Yeah. So very, very interesting, enjoyable read, very quick read, and recommend as well. Irish Readathon. Woohoo! Okay, so we're halfway done here. I will just say the Rubber Bandits from Limerick. My brother sent me a video link and it was to their song Horse Outside, which is old. It's from 2010. But yeah, Horse Outside. It's a music video about people at a wedding and, you know, the best man trying to get with the bridesmaid and the bridesmaid saying, I don't know, this guy's got a Mitsubishi. This guy's got a Honda Civic. This guy's got a Subaru. And he says, well, I've got a horse outside, Derry. You want to come back with me? So it's great. It's great if you can understand it after several tries, I should say. So definitely check them out on YouTube. Emma's here. Hi. And she's sneaking in from Shannon's stream because she's supposed to be writing. We'll keep your secret. It's okay. Andy's also here. Hello. So yeah, lovely people. And Marion stopped in as well. So thank you all for stopping by. There's so many Brits here. I don't know what to do. I'm talking about. Yes. Okay. Moving right along. So that was the Irish Readathon. It was lovely. And what we have left are other reads between March and April. So I've got a couple of those. And as I said at the beginning of the chat, I put one on a thumbnail because I thought I would finish it. And things have been so busy in the last week with that April Shorts and Short Story Scene Challenge. I have not been able to finish the People April pick. So the David Chang memoir. I still have like 2 hours left on the audiobook. So it'll get done. It'll just get pushed into a later wrap up, which is fine. One other announcement. We're reading Library of Legends right here. Beautiful cover book. I'm very excited. I haven't started it yet, but in a few weeks, we'll be reading Library of Legends by Janie Chang for April. Fits for the Asian Readathon, fits for the Patreon book club. It was voted on, and this is the winner. So I'm very excited about that. And this is the link to look at if you're curious. Patreon_MP4 is my little bit.ly link. Okay, so last two reads. You may have heard me do a standalone book review of Sex Talks by Vanessa Marin and Xander Marin. It's a fabulous book. I recommend it to everybody. It's a 5-star recommendation. But that led me into, since we're just throwing shame out the window and like trying to get to know about sex and relationships and all that stuff, picking this up from the used bookstore. Lisa Lister, she's a Brit. She calls the mother figure Mama, which I'd never heard of as a moniker for moms before, but okay. It's called Love Your Lady Landscape, and it's got a very forward-looking cover here. Trust your gut, care for down there, and reclaim your fierce and feminine she power. So I'm not going to read excerpts from this. I do have corners turned down, but if you know my system, they're mostly good. So yeah, so good book. It's about deconstructing our shame and ignorance that we get or inherit from patriarchy in most cases, I believe. It's also giving gentle suggestions for getting to know your own body, which is useful for people who have had like the mind-body divide. We'll get to that in a second. And feel really divorced from like physical experiences, and that may create like disease and issues, let's say. So there's that, gentle suggestions, but there are also she roars, like roars. That's what I'm calling it, for high energy, taking back pride in being a woman. And that's where like the cheesiness of it sort of gets to me. Like you have to be earnest about that to get into it. And I can only go so far with that. Like I do appreciate the sentiment of like, I wish I could feel like this was so great being a woman, but I don't. I feel like it's kind of a raw deal. I don't know if anyone else feels like that, but so it's hard to get in like the raw she roar space when you're kind of like, no, this sucks, and we're working to change it, but we're not there yet, so it still sucks. I don't know. Can I get an amen from everyone else? So it was a little less than a 4-star, but I did like the gentle suggestions. I did like the meditations and the sort of like unlearning and untraining patriarchal like head stuff. So that was really good. And I like Lisa Lister. So we'll see if she's interesting enough to follow on Instagram. So that was because of Sex Talk. So thank you. Thank you. And then finally, we've got a book all the way from February. So this is a short story collection that I started in February because it's African American Reading Month, like extra special spotlight on African American authors. So it's called Drinking Coffee Elsewhere by ZZ Packer. I think, let's check to make sure. 2003. I was going to say late 90s, but yeah, 2003. So backlist for sure, but ZZ Packer, someone in a recent video said that they'd actually read this for school. I can't remember who it was, but if you're back here looking for this book, very exciting. I loved it. So I think I gave it 4.5. I really liked it. I would recommend this for people who liked Secret Lives of Church Ladies, which is a much more recent release. So if you liked that, like the hype about that, this is definitely giving the same vibe. So what did I say? The characters are women and girls in the evangelical traditions breaking out in different ways. There is a trigger warning for one of the stories having an age gap or age gap problematic interaction, I would call it. But overall, ZZ Packer's beautiful writing helps you to pick up and examine the characters' sense of independence and hard-won agency. So it was like kind of what I put in my review. They're vastly different stories, but they're all sort of anchored in the African American evangelical church, and like finding yourself in that world. And I really liked it. So definitely recommend, if you can get a copy of this, used copy, Bookshop copy, ta-da! Definitely worth picking it up piece by piece. February, March, finally finishing it. Sometimes it just goes slower, and that's the way to read a book. Not judging here at all. I think that is all. Let's see. Oh boy, someone's shoveling snow. Boo. That is not what we have here. Don't talk ill of the Brits or our empire. Sorry about that. Jack is here. I was just talking about, what was I talking about? Libro.fm. Yeah, because you highlighted my contribution to that. Unfortunately, you can't evaluate it. I'm sorry that it doesn't cross the pond. Um, all the Brits in the chat today. There's a TikTok audio that's like, I think it's from Little Women, and it's I love being a woman. And I've seen all these women on the app like do these videos about being out in nature, but I only found one recently that was like responding to comments from dudes that are being disrespectful. And I was like, this is how the audio should be used because it sucks. It should be used ironically. But, apparently TikTok doesn't agree with me, which is fine. Yeah. Jack says, I love being a woman, but I hear you, Margaret. I read Invisible Women last year and it is just infuriating. Oh, Invisible Women. I don't know who that is by. Let us know the author name or remind me. And maybe it's like just in the back here. Uh-oh. Emma just had an emergency. Well, okay. I hope everyone is okay in the chat. Just to finish up today, yes, that is my April readathon, kill 2 birds with 1 stone. If I wanted to kill 3 birds, I would have found an Asian author who has a nature memoir. If anyone has that in their bag of tricks, definitely pop it down as a comment, but I don't have any of those in my list. So I just have Nature Memoirs to recommend. 5 stars, 11 recommendations on my Bookshop list. So that's in the chat. So definitely check it out. And that is the wrap up for the Irish Readathon, which is super fun. So thank you to Aoife from Words of Clover for hosting that every year. It's lovely. What we have looking forward is the First Friday productivity sprint in a couple days, and just continuing to read great books. Friday, I will be on Shannon's channel, SD Houston, to talk about AWC announcements and spin that wheel for speakers. So that should be really fun. Stay tuned. That is an AuthorTube writing conference. So all stuff for authors to find resources and network and be lovely with other people. And yeah, April is a busy month. So check out my shorts playlist as well. That's at the top of the chat. I'll pin it. And I'm having lots of fun with that. I'm going to mix it up for the next week because right now they're little mini vlogs of my writing space. And I think next time I'll have to do next week, I'll do a different format and fiddle with it. So stay tuned for that. Very exciting. April is busy, busy, busy. And yeah, it's a birthday month. So happy birthday to all the April birthdays out there. I'm with you in spirit. Happy reading. Stay safe. Sleep well. Sweet dreams. I'll see everybody on Friday or soon. See you on the interwebs.